Triple Crown winner, a Breeders' Cup winner, a horse of a lifetime!
Welcome to Tournament Talk on the Tournament Edge for December the 11th, which is a Friday. I'm Bobby Shoemaker, and that's Barry the Sniper Spears. Barry and I will be breaking down the last four races at Gulfstream Park for Saturday, December 12th. And Barry, we're going to get right to it. We're going to start with race 8 on the card. It's a 6-furlong allowance optional claimer event on the dirt for $75,000. A 2-year-old event. And Barry, an interesting race because you've got a lot of horses that are coming fresh off their maiden score, and this will be their second career start. You've got some other horses coming off of a 2 or 3 month layoff. So again, another one of these races where you can handicap it from a lot of different angles. A field, I believe, of 8. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I agree with you here. This is definitely a very interesting race that's going to be contested on Saturday. These young horses, there's a lot of things that can go on. A lot of trainers are trying to figure out their horses for the future and especially for next year, what their horses are really made of.
Yeah.
So this is definitely when these 2-year-olds this time of year, they're trying to figure out what they have. I'm going to start here with Prospectus, who is the 8-horse out of the Todd Pletcher barn. Gets Javier Castellano, who's top jockey, top connections on this horse. Looks pretty good. I thought it was interesting that the horse did break his maiden at Gulfstream Park West back in early November. Todd Pletcher usually has his horses up in New York for the time being. And, it's a little strange that he brought this one down there early. The race came back a little bit on the slow side, which kind of has me looking elsewhere. So, even with Todd Pletcher's numbers second time out, I'm still going to try to go somewhere else and beat this horse. Now, the next horse is the 9, who's right outside of the 8, obviously, is Cat Tree out of the Dayton Kabisky barn. Very, very good trainer. He's making his name up in Maryland, and he's starting to spread out. And I think this horse is probably, in my estimation, the fastest horse in the race. I mean, his first numbers here, first, second call are very, very good. I think he's definitely going to be on the lead. I just figured he might get a little bit of pace pressure from a few inside horses. I'm not really thrilled with that. Although, second time off the layoff, this horse should probably run a lot better than he did last time in the stake at Gulfstream Park West. Getting a rider switch to Laneri, who owns Kentucky. Had a great meet last year at Gulfstream. So, they definitely got the right guy on. But I'm still going to look elsewhere, and I'm looking to the horse outside of Cat Tree, who is Wild Ye May, the 10. I am just in love with that race that he ran first time out on the turf at Gulfstream Park West back November 28th.
Right.
He ran off a pretty hot pace, set a great trip, and drew away. I foresee the same almost exact trip here on Saturday. I don't suspect he's going to run into any traffic trouble, anything like that. He's just going to sit right off the speed, make that one run, and hopefully just extend it and win going away.
And 5-1 morning line on Wild Ye May. Do you think you'll get that?
Probably not. I'm going to say probably more 4-1-ish. Yeah. I think the 2 inside horses to him, the 9 and the 10, are probably going to be around 2-3-1 each.
Right.
But I do think they're all going to take a lot of play. Hopefully the 10 will take a little bit less than the other 2 and be a little bit higher priced. But These are kind of Captain Obvious plays. So, I think that, I'm just going to take the 10 to sit a good trip here.
Okay. Thought it was laughable that the 8-horse Prospectus was 4-1 morning line. I mean, you can't help but chuckle when you see a Todd Pletcher horse that's ridden by Javier Castellano that broke his maiden as a 2-year-old, and now he's in one of these races at Gulfstream Park. I mean, he won't sniff 4-1. And you hit the nail on the head in reference to the race came back slow. I mean, how I calculate races, Barry, that race came back extremely slow. In fact, it came back slower than I'm counting 4 horses here on my page. So I think the horse is very beatable. I think he will get beat. And I do think that your 10 horse is a player. I was very impressed with the 9 horse. I thought coming off that 167-day or 176-day layoff at Gulfstream Park West, the way he won, and I know he was all out, but it was very impressive. And as you mentioned, he's got every right to improve off that race. Once again, you know me. I'm not in this to pick favorites. I'm certainly not doing this show to pick favorites. I went with a double-digit morning line horse in the 3 horse. That is Benny and Alex. And let me explain why. Obviously, he didn't win his first race of his career. In fact, he didn't look very good at all. And what did they do right after that, Barry? They gelded him. So off the gelding, what's he get? He gets a muddy track at Belmont Park on September 11th. And he didn't run very well. He was beat 16 3/4 lengths. And he had every excuse in that race. He just didn't like the slot. A lot of horses don't like the slot. So now he's second off the gelding, and he finally gets a fast track at 6.5 furlongs, and he wins like a good thing. He wins by 5 1/4 lengths. The numbers, especially early in that race, were very fast. Overall numbers, Barry, could have been faster than what they were, but Irad looked behind him, saw that nothing was coming, and I wouldn't say the horse was geared down, but he had a lot left in the tank, and you just didn't see that on paper. So he gets what I'm hoping is another fast track today. He ran 6.5 on the pace last time out. I'm hoping that going 6, maybe he can stalk it as you're hoping your 10 will stalk it. And I think that this horse's best efforts are yet to come. And the last race exemplifies how good this horse can be. Also, from the pedigree rating on time form, he fits. It's not as high as the 8, but it's in that realm. And I think he's got every chance to win. You've been giving me some tutorials on jockeys. You tell me I can't go wrong with Panici. He gets on this horse. I think he sets off the speed, improves off the last effort, wins the race at a really good price.
Yeah, I don't have any argument against that. I mean, whenever someone takes a price horse in a race like this, you got to respect it. And also, with the horse that's up and coming, a lot of these horses are kind of, you're going to see what they're really made of. And personally, I don't like betting a horse like a New York bred like this in Florida in an open company race. But that's not to say I don't respect Marcus Vitelli, who he is as a trainer. And I think that, he spots his horses very well.
Right.
And I think he might be onto something here, with the upside on this horse. Even if he doesn't win on Saturday, it's definitely one to keep an eye on.
And something else that caught my eye, Barry, that kind of added icing on the cake, disregard the December 7th work. I think that was just to stretch his legs. Look at those 2 works before that. November 23rd, 4 furlongs and 47 flat, beats 25 home. And then he turns around on November 30th and runs 5 furlongs in about 1 minute and beats, 3 of 7 home. But don't look at how many horses he beat there. Just look at the fact that this horse is very young and he's running 5 furlongs in a minute. I like the works. I think I'm on to something here as far as getting a fast track, and the gelding may have made a difference. And there's no question in my mind that turning for home, he'll have every chance to win. It's just going to depend on whether or not he's good enough. And I think I'll get every bit of that 12-1 morning line.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'll definitely get it. I think you're going to get higher than 12-1, to be honest with you. And also, those workouts at Palm Meadows, I don't know if you know this, but the surface there is kind of deep. So when a horse runs pretty fast on that surface, you can tell they're for real. So, definitely a lot to look forward to on Saturday on that horse.
Very excited about the 3 horse, and we'll get back to that a little bit later. So, Barry is on the 10 horse. I am on the 3. We will move on to a stakes race at Gulfstream Park on the turf. Is that not music to all of our ears?
That's
a
right.
7.5 furlong turf event. It's the $100,000 South Beach for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. Looks like a pretty hot pace to me, Barry, and another full field. How do you see this one playing out?
Absolutely. This race has some really hard-knocking horses in it. Horses that are coming in from, the higher level claiming ranks and trying a stakes company. A lot of them, not for the first time, but really kind of dipping their toe back into stakes company. With that being said, I'm going to start here with the one Dauphine Rousset. I think that's how it is. And
Yes.
you know me with those French names. I'm not very good. But this horse was recently claimed from David Jacobson back in October, which is very interesting to me because the horse before that was in Chad Brown's barn. And usually when horses change hands from one good trainer to another, they don't lose very much. Okay. They kind of stay in the same style they're accustomed to, a little tweak here and there, and the horse shows some talent. This horse is obviously talented. Jacobson has huge numbers off the claim, first time off the claim. Also, huge numbers off a 30 to 60 day layoff.
Right.
So I think that this horse is going to definitely give a good account of herself on Saturday. The only reservation I have is that the horse, every time he's run into this kind of stakes company, lower level stakes, ungraded, doesn't run the best and can't finish, in my estimation. Has problems finishing races.
And going off at short prices and doing so, Barry.
Exactly, and that was my next point. At favorite prices most of the time. So for me, even though it gets top rider, I'm still going to take a pass. Next horse I want to talk about is Hope Cross the 6, a Chad Brown horse with Joe Bravo, who has been riding lights out most of the year, has tailed off a little bit recently, but definitely a top jockey, no matter where you put him. This horse ran a really good race at Gulfstream Park West when it was pouring. A few weeks ago, and none of those horses, the horses that beat him, Lady Lara is definitely top notch.
Yes,
almost grade 1 type animal.
I agree.
Same thing with the horse that Hope Cross beat for second, Sandiva. It ran very well at Gulfstream last year. I don't expect anything less. So this horse is another one who I'm kind of puzzled on how what kind of trip this horse is actually going to get. Because it's not really a speed horse, likes to stalk, but might end up being a little bit wide with the other speed to the inside. I'm not really sure, and for that reason alone, it wouldn't surprise me if this horse would win, but I'm going to take a pass. The horse that I actually landed on was the 3, Unbridled Courage, out of the Peter Walder barn, who every year in this meet, it seems like he points to this meet, he lights out. This horse is basically... first time in his barn, he has great numbers with that. Second off the layoff, he has even better numbers. This horse is coming in off a 5.5 furlong race at the fairgrounds. Ran okay, but I think this race, or at least a similar race to this, was the goal. And I think they got him in the right spot, or got her in the right spot. And I think this horse is going to give a great account of herself. I think she's going to sit a great stalking trip, maybe even set a little bit farther back off the pace with the blinkers off. And I think this horse is just going to eat him up in the lane.
I think the 3 horse wants this type of distance as well. I don't think she wants to go short, and I think you're on to something as far as that last race possibly being a prep. So the 3 horse was my second selection in this race, Barry. I think the 6 horse in the end is the horse to beat, although I looked elsewhere. I do think the 6's numbers and the races that the horse is coming out of seems to be... just a very good horse that's very consistent. But at that short of a price, and I had the 6 further off the pace than you do. And again, as we've gone over, especially on the turf, you're telling me that you're going to bet a horse that's 7-2 or lower that's going to come from way off the pace and runs a risk of being blocked, trapped, boxed in. I just have no interest. I'll be honest and forthright with the viewers. This was the least of my favorite races that I read. I didn't have confidence in any of these horses per se. I ended up landing on the 8. Now, Barry, if you would like to go ahead and try to pronounce this horse's name, you can go ahead and do that. But I'm not even going to try.
I would. To the Paesi.
Yeah, what Barry Spears said. What he said. I'll just stick to saying the 8 horse, okay? The 8, to me, from a numbers perspective, has been very consistent. Although she hasn't won that much, she's always made a good account of herself from a numbers perspective. 2 races back, Barry, I understand that she got beat by 11 lengths, But again, Barry, you know how I am. I don't care about the lengths necessarily that you lost. How fast was the race? And look who she's losing to. Receptica, Lady Laura. She's losing to some salty horses, and she went very fast at Belmont Park and did a lot of the dirty work on the front end, and clearly she quit. Third off the layoff, she goes to Suffolk. Bill Mott sends her up there. She wins like a good thing, and rightfully so. I just think she's going to be forwardly placed in this race, but not necessarily on the lead. I like the fact that she has a layoff. Bill Mott was able to freshen her, go to those 2 workouts, Barry, 5 furlongs and 1 minute flat, 5 furlongs and 1 minute flat, back to back. They're strategically placed workouts. I know this horse is going to run well. Is it going to be good enough to win? That is yet to be determined. But 8-1, Bill Mott, a horse I know has run well and consistent in the past, setting a trip that I think is favorable in a race like this, taking the shot with the 8 horse.
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with that horse. Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott gets a heady rider in Chris DiCarlo. I don't expect he doesn't make too many mistakes.
Right.
So, I think this horse is going to be in the right position. Whether, she can finish it off is another story. But, we'll see on Saturday. But one horse I do want to mention at a big price is the one outside of the 8, is Night Song. If this pace ends up collapsing on the lead, definitely want to look for Night Song to be picking up the pieces at a huge price. Maybe even a super or a trifecta factor here.
Okay, Barry, I wanted to go back to my horse for a second.
Sure.
We obviously know Bill Mott's not very good with firsters, maidens, things of that nature. And I've oftentimes bet against him in situations like this off of a long layoff. But do his horses typically work out this well after that type of a layoff? Because obviously 5 furlongs isn't 59, but 5 furlongs in a minute, that's obviously a pretty solid work, and she backed it up twice. Does that tell you that this horse is ready to run despite Bill Mott's? Obviously his numbers don't jump off the page at you off the layoff.
Well, I think the last race on October 3rd at Suffolk Downs really gave him a clue as to what's going on with the horse, and I think they figured out this horse likes it on the lead a little bit better than coming off the pace.
Sure.
And I think they may have asked this horse, this is just purely speculation, but I think they may have asked this horse for a little bit to drill some speed into him to try to get to that lead or get in a better position than normal. Because it showed a lot of speed in that last race and basically controlled the pace from start to finish, albeit at Suffolk Downs, which was not top-notch company, but still a $75,000 race. So, there's going to be some good horses in there or some that are really similar to the ones in this race. So, I wouldn't be surprised if this horse lies a good trip and has his own destiny in his hands.
Right. Which is all you're asking for in a turf event like this, especially at 7.5 furlongs, and you don't want to get hung wide. I've seen so many horses at Gulfstream Park at this distance just get hung wide because their jockeys make a mistake going into that first turn. So Barry is on the 3. I really do like your selection, Barry. I almost pulled the trigger on the 3, and I am on the 8. So we will move on to race 10 on the card. It's the $100,000 Harlan's Holiday Stake. It is 1 16 on the dirt for 3-year-olds and up. This was a very fun race to read. And the opposite of race 9, Barry, you're talking about a field with a lot of talent and a field with a lot of talent doing a lot of different things, whether it's on the lead or coming from off the pace or stalking and setting a good trip. How do you see this race playing out in the Salty Group?
Well, this race was real interesting. Like you said, there's a lot of top-notch horses here coming off the break. Getting a little freshening before coming down to Florida. And this race, to me, has a look like a prep race for everybody. Where there's bigger things down the road for each one of these horses. Horses like Amy's Holiday ran well last year, was on the Derby Trail for a while. Mr. Jordan, a.k.a. White Chocolate, just, a real hard-knocking horse that has tremendous speed. There may be bigger things for a lot of these horses down the road. I'm not convinced that, they're all going to be all fully cranked up for this race on Saturday. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go here first to Valid, who is, one of the horses for the course here.
Mr. Gulfstream Park.
He's 5 for 10 at Gulfstream, and 10 for 32 lifetime. I mean, how can you knock that? The horse, is over almost $800,000 in earnings. That's the type of horse that I want to own.
Right.
It runs hard every time, in graded company, gives a great account of himself every single time. I don't expect anything less. Marcus Vitale, an old Suffolk Down guy from Massachusetts, always has his horses ready to go. So I don't expect anything different. And that's why I think I'm going kind of Captain Obvious in this race with Made from Lucky. Todd Pletcher horse has been, kind of inconsistent, if you will, over his career. This is a perfect spot for this horse to second off the layoff after running a pretty good trip in the Discovery Handicap back in mid-November. This horse, I think, actually has a class edge over the others. And I think, with Todd Pletcher, the way he's going, even early on in this meet, he's definitely going to be another force to be reckoned with. I think this horse gets home at probably somewhere around 5-2, which, as a tournament player and even as a, through the windows better, is not what I want to see.
No.
But, in the big scheme of things, in a pick 4, this horse can get you through to the next leg, and also in a tournament setting, can also maintain your position and even move up when people don't want to use favorites.
Sure. Okay. I hard played against the 4. But I do respect Valid and everything that you said earlier. And are we in agreement before I move forward? Valid will be your favorite?
I'm not convinced of that.
Will it be your horse?
Yeah, I think Todd Pletcher probably 2-1, 5-2-ish. I mean, they're really going to be close in the wagering, but sure. I still think Made from Lucky probably will be the favorite.
Okay. Initially, I thought this race was going to be very fast up front, Barry. And the more I looked at the fractions, the more one horse stood out to me on the front end. And I think the 7-horse Encryption is the speed of the speed. And I think he's got a very good chance of taking this field. If not wire to wire, be forwardly placed, making an early move and trying to hold off anything coming late. This horse initially caught my eye, Barry, at Parks, right off the layoff, where he run a very good race, wins the race by 6 1/4. My reservation about Parks is that their numbers, much like Monmouth, the numbers come back inflated. So you really don't know how to trust the numbers. So on Breeders' Cup Friday, when he ran against Race Day and Opportunity, I totally dismissed him, and I bet Race Day that day. Encryption ran his eyeballs out. He ran much better than I expected him to run. He did all of the heavy lifting early, and he lost to 2 horses that, in my opinion, would beat everything in this field. Every single horse, in my opinion. So now this horse gets a 43-day freshening, coming off what the numbers say is the biggest race of his life. If he's anywhere close to that race, he wins on Saturday. Again, I'm all about trip. I think he's going to set a great trip. He's either going to be on the front end or he's going to be stalking the 10, who's very fast, the 1 horse who's showed some speed in the past, turn for home. Paco's going to ask him to give everything he's got, and I personally think it's going to be best done. I like the 7-horse Encryption. I'm not sure what I'm going to get on him as far as a price. If he's 6-1 or higher, I'm also betting him to win at the window.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you're going to get that price. You may even get a little higher, more like 7 or 8-1. The only thing I noticed about Encryption, whose career I've kind of followed very closely, because this horse caught my eye a long time ago. He's one of those feast or famine type horses where he's going to either win by 7 or lose by 7. There's really no in between with this horse. I don't know if you see his lifetime past performances, and the 4 times that he has won, it's pretty much been by open lengths. And he strikes me as a kind of inconsistent type where, it seems like the connections kind of wanted to put him in the top echelon of horses, but then kind of figured out and may have ruined the horse's confidence a little bit. But I have no objection to your selection here with him. especially after losing a race day and opportunity, like you said, horses that would thump this field pretty much 9 out of 10 times. So, getting that kind of price is definitely a pretty good move.
A 122 Barry time form U.S. speed figure on Friday, the day before the Breeders' Cup, which is the best last out time form U.S. speed figure in this field. And I'm betting him, and I don't always do this, and please to the viewers, don't bet a horse always off his last race. You've got to look deeper into the races. I just see this horse being a better horse this year than what he was in the past. Those 2 races that he's run this year are far superior than what he's ever done before. And like you said, previously he would either win by 6 or 7 or finish last. He didn't. He fought on gamely in this race, Barry, at Keeneland, and I think that's a new sign, and I love the freshman. 43 days. And I'm going to love the trip. And the more we talk about it, the more I like this horse. I think he's ready to run a big race, and I think he's going to win.
All right. So I got a question for you before we move on.
Yes, sir.
What do you do with the 10, Senor Casciano?
Well, I read from the bottom to the top of the racing point. I thought I was going to pick the 10 to win, despite the 225-day layoff.
Yeah.
The workouts, the 6 furlongs, the 5 furlongs, and 58, there is no question, Barry, that this horse is really fast. And I just played against him because of how long he's off the layoff, and the 7 has run 2 very good races this year. But I'll tell you now, I like the 10 better than I do Valid or the Todd Pletcher horse. I think he's got a chance to win the race. And you're talking about another horse who probably is going to be an overlay simply because of how many days he's been off. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, you never know. I mean, word gets out down in South Florida real quick when a horse is doing well.
So it's kind of like Saratoga?
Yeah, more or less. And if he's doing as well as it seems on paper, you might get that 5-1.
Well, I'm tempted to, depending on their odds, 5-7, 5-7, all this, and turn the try into an exacta and see what happens. But I think the 10's got every chance to win. I just went with the 7 again because he does have 2 races under his belt. One of them was a win at Parks, and another was a valiant effort against 2 horses that would beat everything in this field.
All righty.
So we'll move on to last, certainly not the least, Sniper. It is race 11, another stakes race, 7.5 furlongs on the turf, 3-year-olds and up. Another race that I saw being a very hot contested pace early. Who wins and why?
Well, like you said, I'm in agreement with you with the pace looking to be very, very hot.
Right.
With a horse like Plainview, who's just ultra fast, has 1 speed, and that's full
throttle.
Go.
Right.
Every time. And this horse is great. I love watching him run. I mean, he's 7 years old. I don't know how many more he has left in him. But, man, I just like seeing this horse run and wing it out there in the lead. But I think he's going to get contested, on Saturday. The cutback should favor him a bit.
You think?
Cutting back from a mile to 7.5, just that little bit could be enough to get him, at least a real good shot at the lead right at the finish. So, I don't expect him not to give his best effort. He seems to be training well. He's got a little trip around the track in the mud, a little workout there. And Jacobson, although he has pretty ugly numbers down at Gulfstream.
It hasn't been good, has it?
No, he won one the other day that was kind of against his numbers, but I just decided elsewhere thanks to the pace. The 5, who was a really interesting horse to me, he's kind of favored, or might be favored, Tower of Texas. Now, this horse is coming in from Woodbine. I don't think he's run anywhere else. But he definitely has a class edge. I mean, he finished second in a Grade 2 at 7 furlongs not too long ago in August. He basically won a Grade 2 at a mile at Woodbine, which is tough to do at that track in particular. So this horse is definitely going to get some play. He's been training steadily along since October. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't give a top effort. Other than the fact that the trainer doesn't have really great numbers off this kind of layoff. He has better numbers on the cutback, which he's getting today.
Yeah.
But, I also think that this might be a setup for another race down the road for this one in particular. So I ended up on the one, coincidentally, who is Aztec Brave. I think this horse drew well. He's on the inside. I think he's going to be able to kind of put himself in position where he needs to be, barring any kind of mishap at the start. Because the horse doesn't necessarily need to lead to win this. He's on the cutback just like a lot of the others in here. Joe Sharp is real good. Second off the layoff. The horse caught a less than firm turf last time. Kind of was too wide the whole way and just got nailed by Skyflight, who's definitely a horse on the rise. I just think that he may have needed that race, and I expect him to win full-fledged on Saturday.
Well, Barry, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm on the Aztec Brave, the one as well, and for basically the same things that you mentioned. What sold me on this horse was 2 back at Arlington Park. That's what initially caught my eye. I mean, he was superb in that race. And by the way, look who he lost to in that race. Key to Power.
Key to Power, our buddy from last week.
My favorite horse of the week that solidified a second-place finish in the Derby Wars 25K. But he did everything in that race, Barry, but win. I thought he was valiant in defeat last out. Maybe he just didn't like the yielding turf course. Nevertheless, I mean, he was very good. And you want to talk about a pillar of success, a horse that you mentioned Ballard, how he runs well every race. I mean, look at this horse. Let's go back, guys, to Fairgrounds, March 8th. He finishes second. After that, at Aqueduct, he wins. He then, at Monmouth, finishes third, beat a length. Then wins at Mountaineer. Then finishes third, beat a length. Then finishes second, beat ahead. Running time form U.S. speed figures, Barry, of 121, 124, 116, 122. You can't ask for more than that. As you mentioned, he's going to be forwardly placed, but he doesn't necessarily need the lead, so he's got enough tactical speed to get him out of the gate so the one post does not compromise him going into the first turn. He'll certainly be ready to roll. You can't go wrong with Corey Lannery. He and I have been teaming up since last Saturday. It's been a successful partnership. I just think he's a standout. And 6-1, are you kidding me? I mean, 6-1. I'm hoping no one watches this show just because I want to get 6-1 on Aztec Brave. I mean, I couldn't believe when this horse was 6-1. The Corey Lannery, Joe Sharp combination, Barry. What else can you say? Let me be negative on Plainview. Yes, this horse will set a good trip. Yes, he cuts back. But I've been burnt by this horse already this year. On this show, I went with this horse, and he went soft fractions early, typical of a New York race, and he still wasn't good enough to win. I think he's past his best races. As you mentioned, he's 7. Reporting Star ran a whale of a race, the 10 horse, at Woodbine. In the Woodbine Mile, the day lead was as good as you can get and still lost that race. He hasn't run back to that effort. And sometimes I've learned that when horses run that big of a race, they're just done for the year sometimes. I mean, they just don't run well. They don't look well. He went off the favorite last time out, I believe, at Gulfstream Park West and did not win that race. How in the world Aztec Brave is 6-1 in this spot? I have no idea. I think he wins this race. And Barry, when they turn for home, I think Corey will ask him once, and barring anything that we don't, see, he gets a good trip, saves all the ground, and just wins this race by 4.
Yeah, I'm hoping that does happen, especially at 6-1. But you did mention the horse that I like underneath him is Reporting Star, actually. I don't think the races were as bad as it seems. I mean, he ran in the Canadian International and finished 5th, 11 horses in the race. Didn't run that bad with blinkers off and not at his best. I mean, that very well could have been a prep.
Sure.
And then they throw the blinkers back on. He lacked some room in the stretch at Gulfstream Park West in that last race. So, I don't expect this horse to be too far out of it come at the wire. So I think it looks like a 1-2 there with the 1 and Aztec Brave with the 10 underneath or vice versa. But I'm really looking for this 1 to win this race.
And before we go, for this edition of Tournament Talk, your play of the 4 races.
My play comes in race 9, number 3, Unbridled Courage. To the bank.
Go ahead. Unbridled Courage. I'm going to go against the grain a little bit here, Barry, and do 2 things. I'm going to give you 2 horses. My top selection is Aztec Brave. He's the play of the week. However, he's not going to be 6-1, and I want to give my viewers a price. So I'll go back to the first race in race 8, Benny and Alex. I think this horse is on the improve. I don't think you've seen the best out of this horse yet. The workouts tell me that he's ready to pop. Benny and Alex, the 3-horse, 12-1 morning line in race 8 at Gulfstream Park. So that'll do it for the December 11th edition of Tournament Talk. We hope you've enjoyed it. For Bobby Shoemaker, that's Barry the Sniper Spears. And until next time, good luck.